I want to ask you something uncomfortable. If you woke up tomorrow and the CISO title was gone, the role eliminated, the job restructured, who are you? Not what would you do next? Not how would you find another role? Who are you? Take a moment with that question. Most people do not. Because for a lot of security leaders, the honest answer is, I am not entirely sure. I've been this title for so long that the boundary between the role and the person has gotten a bit blurry. And AI is making that boundary blurrier every quarter. This video is not about job loss. It is not a career advice video. It is about the thing underneath the job, the identity that either survives role changes or doesn't. It's also about 3 specific traps that make security leaders more fragile than they realize. Here's what's happening in the security leadership community right now. The role is changing faster than most people can adapt to. AI governance is expanding the mandate. AI tools are flattening the technical expertise gap that used to make the CISO role feel essential. Boards are asking questions that security leaders are not trained to answer. And a growing number of organizations are asking whether they even need a full-time CISO at all. For someone whose identity is built on the title, that environment is destabilizing to say the least. For someone whose identity runs deeper than the title, though, it's an opportunity. The difference between those 2 people is not technical skill. It is not credentials. It's not even experience. It's where they built their foundation. There are 3 traps that security leaders fall into when they build identity on the wrong foundation. You'll probably recognize at least one of them. The first trap is title dependency. Title dependency is when your sense of professional worth is inseparable from the acronym after your name. CISO, VP of InfoSec, Director of Security. Remove the title and the confidence goes with it. Here's how you know you're in this trap. You spend more energy defending the scope and status of the CISO role than you spend developing what you actually bring to it. When someone questions whether the role is still necessary, you feel it personally, not professionally, personally. The role is not the problem. The dependence is. Titles are functional labels. They describe a set of responsibilities at a particular organization at a particular moment in time. They are not measurements of worth. And they are not permanent. Every CISO knows intellectually that titles change. Reorganizations happen. Reporting lines shift. The org chart gets redrawn. What most people do not prepare for is how exposed they feel when that happens. Because they built the professional identity on the label, not on what the label was supposed to represent. What the label was supposed to represent is judgment, the ability to see risk clearly and communicate it at the right level. That does not disappear when the title changes. But it also does not automatically survive if you never developed it independently of the title. The second trap is credential anchoring. Credential anchoring is when your proof of value lives in the past. The credentials you earned, the frameworks you mastered, the assessments you passed, the degree on the wall. Listen, credentials matter. They signal a baseline of knowledge and a commitment to personal development. Nobody is arguing against them. The trap is when credentials become the primary answer to the question, why are you still relevant? Here's the problem. Credentials document what you knew when you earned them. They are a snapshot, not a statement of current capability. In a stable environment, that snapshot ages slowly. In an environment where AI is compressing the value of technical knowledge and expanding the value of judgment, that snapshot ages fast. The CISSP you earned 10 years ago tells the world you understood a defined body of knowledge at a defined point in time. It does not tell the world what you do with uncertainty today. What you do when the threat is novel and the framework does not cover it. What you do when the board is asking a governance question that has no certification answer. That is where the real value is. And credentials do not get you there. thinking does. If your answer to relevance is a list of certifications, you are anchoring to a past that AI is actively devaluing. The organizations that are winning on AI governance right now are not the ones with the most certified staff. They are the ones with the clearest thinking. The third trap is the most subtle. I call it relevance theater. Relevance theater is performing activity as a substitute for impact. Attending every conference, having a take on every new AI tool, staying in every conversation, filling the calendar with visibility events while the actual thinking gets shallower. The tell is a full calendar and a reactive posture. You are everywhere, but not particularly decisive in any of it. You are present, but not leading. Security leaders fall into relevance theater because the fear of becoming irrelevant is real. The field is moving fast. New tools, new threats, new frameworks, new regulation. The performative response is to demonstrate that you're keeping up. The actual response is to develop the judgment that lets you sort the signal from the noise. Keeping up with every development is not a leadership strategy. It's a defense mechanism. The leaders who are shaping how their organizations respond to AI are not the ones who attended the most conferences. They're the ones who sat with the hard questions long enough to have an independent point of view. Activity is not the same as progress. Presence is not the same as leadership. And a calendar full of meetings is not the same as building something that matters. Intent without execution is theater. Relevance theater is a version of that. The performance substitutes for the outcome. So what does identity look like when it's not built on a title, credentials, or performance? Well, it's built on code, CODE, clarity, ownership, discipline, ethics. Clarity is the ability to see reality without distortion. Not what you want to be true, not what would make the next board meeting easier. What is actually true about the risk, the organization, and the decision in front of you. Security leaders with clarity are not threatened by hard questions. They've already been asking them. Ownership. Ownership is the refusal to externalize accountability. You do not wait for the org chart to assign responsibility. You do not point at the framework when things go wrong. You own the outcome, including the ones that were uncomfortable to take on. Discipline is execution independent of motivation. The work gets done because it matters, not because someone is watching. The hard conversations happen because they're necessary, not because the conditions are perfect. And ethics. Ethics is doing the right thing when it costs you, under pressure, when compromise becomes convenient, when the easier path is available. This is where most professional identities reveal their actual foundation. These four things do not care what your title is. They do not expire with a certification cycle. They are not performed for a conference audience. They're how you operate when no one is watching. Code is what remains when everything else changes. And in an environment where everything is changing, that is exactly what you need to build on. Before the role was the CISO, there was a person who saw problems clearly, took responsibility for outcomes, executed consistently, and made decisions with integrity. That person does not disappear when the title does. The question is whether you have invested in that person as much as you have invested in the role. Identity built on a title is fragile, not because titles disappear, though some will, because the role is changing in ways that require more from you than the title ever demanded. The CISO who survives the next 10 years in this field is not the one with the most certifications or the fullest conference schedule. It is the one who built something underneath all of that. Clarity about what matters, ownership of hard outcomes, discipline in execution, ethics when the pressure is on. That is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. If this is a question you've been sitting with, I would love to hear about how you're thinking about it. Drop it in the comments. And if this kind of conversation is useful to you, subscribe. There's more coming.